And I talked about a lot of the negative things involved in President Trump's tax cuts for the wealthy, and the fact that 83% of it went towards the rich, and right now we're running $1 trillion deficits. But one thing that was supposed to be positive is allowing more people to file for simplified free returns. So some of the changes made the actually filing taxes easier, right? And of course, part of that, as we'll explain, is eliminating some deductions. That's not always a good thing, but increasing the standard deduction, which makes it so that some people might actually save a little bit more on taxes, at least in the short term, until those tax cuts run out. There's a sunset provision. Well, again, the corporate tax cuts go on forever while the individual cuts expire. So anyway, now some of the changes that were made ended up threatening the business interests of Intuit. Now, Intuit is a maker of TurboTax. Now, ProPublica looked into this, and they looked into how Intuit tried to make as many people pay for its product as possible, despite actually having a free option that's provided. And look, the law actually does make it easier for people to file for free. Now, the company had been regularly charging $100 or more for returns that included itemized deductions for mortgage interest and charitable donations. So now, mortgage interest, that's for somebody who obviously owns a house and pays interest on their mortgage, right? So that's for people who are a little bit more affluent or lucky enough to be able to own a home. Now, charitable donations, that also is for more affluent people, wealthier people. So those itemized deductions, of course, it would make sense that for, a company that's trying to make a profit off tax preparation, to charge more for those things because, again, those customers who use it are more affluent. Now, under the law, the new law, I should say, many wealthier taxpayers will no longer be filing that form. So that means these more affluent people would end up using the company's free software. So now that's bad for Intuit. That's bad for their tax software because now they're losing a bunch of money. Well, they had to make it up from somewhere, so where did they go? Oh, they ended up charging more low-income people for their services. Now, which ones? Well, this would include individuals with disability, unemployed, and people who owe money on their student loans, all of whom use tax forms that TurboTax previously included in their software for free. So that switch, was it effective? Was there enough money? Were there enough customers now that had to use and purchase their tax filing software to make up for the difference? Well, in May, Intuit announced that its TurboTax unit had grown quarterly revenue by 10% to $2.2 billion. That is despite losing the wealthier people who filed itemized deductions and having to go towards, of course, charging poor people more money. Now, Intuit CEO Sasan Goodarzi alluded to the strategy in a call with Wall Street analysts, saying that the tuned product lineup adjusted for the new tax legislation helped the company bring in more money. Quote, "We needed to change our lineup this year to ensure that we delivered for customers given the tax code changes. We are big supporters of tax simplification." Gee, I wonder why. "We believe that it enables consumers to take more control over their financial life." Now, of course, that's a bunch of hot air. It's a bunch of BS. Of course, they're talking to shareholders. So, we care so much about customers. We believe that our consumers, that we are doing the best we can to help them. No, what you're doing is delivering on profits for shareholders. And they did that in the worst way by shifting money, of course, or shifting their revenue or the cost from wealthier taxpayers to not so wealthy taxpayers, to poor people. Those same poor people, by the way, should not be paying a dime on their taxes. They just shouldn't. Under a 2002 deal with the government, most Americans are supposed to be able to file their taxes for free so long as they make under $66,000 a year. In return, the IRS had agreed not to offer its own free service, which actually would have been more effective. It not only would have been more effective, it would have been cheaper and easier to use since the IRS already has all your information. That's an insane deal. But since they knew the IRS could do tax prep more efficiently and for free, these companies protested. They used their money to lobby politicians to say that, no, we can't do it for free. You can't have the IRS do this. No, it has to go through us, for-profit private corporations. And I know some of you might be saying, well, I do my taxes for free because I just do it myself. Okay, that's great if you can. Wonderful. You're an extremely smart, talented person, apparently. But for a lot of people, taxes are overly complicated, or there's the fear, of course, that you're going to mess up and be audited. And look, I'll be honest, I tried doing my taxes last year as a small business or an independent contractor more. And it was difficult. And even then, when I tried to file certain forms, because I ended up having to do this, there were certain forms that I needed to file for certain deductions. I ended up having to pay H&R Block. So even though I tried to do it on my own and was mostly successful, there were some forms that I had to pay for anyway. So I ended up having to pay this. And so, look, this is a big problem. Filing taxes should be free. It should be easy. And no matter how much you make, right? Private for-profit corporations should not be involved in this thing, But, as I said before, they lobby politicians. And, they looked at the, tax laws and they looked at this deal back in 2002 and said, wait a minute, the IRS had us for free. We're sunk. But my profits, but my CEO, we need another yacht. You can't do this for free. You can't do this for free. And so, yeah, they use their money to buy off our politicians so they can preserve their profit margins. And look, here's the thing. There is technically a free option, yes. But, of course, as you're going to see, they make it really hard to get to, really obtuse, and they continue to hide, or not hide, but keep some of their, filing tools, these specific forms for deductions behind a paywall. Now, as ProPublica has been reporting, Intuit has steered eligible customers away from the truly free version, aggressively marketing products that are called free, even though many customers would end up paying anyway. They found that the company's commercial ecosystem included 4 price tiers: Free Edition, which is actually free, Deluxe, Premier, and Self-Employed. You can argue that or you could probably see what's the most expensive, probably self-employed, because it is actually kind of difficult to pay your taxes when you're self-employed. Coming from someone who is self-employed, take it from me. Now, the goal, according to former employees, is to draw in people with the promise of free and then to get them to pay. Some pay because they have to file extra forms. Some pay for ancillary services. Because the new law almost doubled the standard deduction, Intuit faced a loss of users of its deluxe edition. Most of the millions of Americans who no longer be itemizing their deductions are relatively affluent, making more than $75,000 a year. I freaking wish I could make more than $75,000 a year. It's a pipe dream. But they would now be potentially be eligible to use the free edition. In response, the company bumped a number of forms typically used by lower income filers, which were previously available in the free edition, into paying editions. This is one former staffer that said, quote, "They were always supposed to be customer focused, customer first, but the income levels of the groups that they were being driven to paid products was never really considered." So now how is that customer first? When you are charging poorer customers more money and the affluent customers end up filing more for free. So now, okay, what are the forms that were free and which ones are not free? Well, one of the forms was for a tax credit that goes exclusively to poor taxpayers who are elderly or get disability. So you want to do your taxes with Intuit TurboTax, they're going to charge you for filing for that tax credit for being old or disabled. Great. Another is used by low to middle income households that receive tax credit for putting money in a retirement account. So you want to put money in your retirement account, your IRA, your 401k, whatever. Ooh, you want to file? You want to get that tax credit for doing so? Sorry, you're going to have to pay money for that. A third is used by taxpayers who collected unemployment benefits. So if you're unemployed at any part of the year, which many manufacturers do layoffs in the summer. I remember that when I worked in manufacturing, or others just do layoffs because, look, a lot of these corporations that receive a lot of money in tax benefits, tax breaks, still end up closing down some of their plants. GM, for example, in Lordstown, Ohio, they closed down one of their plants. And so if you've been unemployed and you want to file that, a form that shows that you would receive unemployment benefits, nope, you end up having to pay. And then, of course, people with student loans, which are about 40 million Americans with student loans that pay interest, they also have to upgrade to their deluxe. Just last year alone, more than 5 million taxpayers with income below $50,000 claimed student loan interest deduction. I know I have as well. I've been doing it for a long time. Now, the company's changes also affected parents who get a credit for childcare, as well as people filling the schedule for interest and dividends. Now, the one doesn't really affect people who are low income, but for childcare? I mean, come on, man. Really? So the majority of people that are now having to pay to file their taxes in a supposedly free system now end up paying. They're making less than $66,000 a year, which, again, I fall under that, despite the government telling them that what they have to, what they can use to file their tax prep should be free. It's bait and switch. I mean, again, if you want all the deductions and the largest possible refund, then you have to file these forms. And sometimes the cost, like one documented case that's in this report, it's amazing, right? So this person, it pays student loans, for example, right? So now they wanted that student loan deduction. They ended up having to pay over $100 to get a $26 deduction. Now, this person not making a lot of money, paying their student loans, hoping for that deduction that's going to be pretty good, ended up paying over $100. They lost a bunch of money. And that's just one of the documented cases in this report. But yet, you don't find out how much that deduction is going to be until you've already paid to upgrade. And so that's the bait and switch. And that's what these companies are banking on, that you will pay to trick you, right? They will trick you into paying for something that might not be beneficial at all. It's 100% predatory and 100% gross. These companies, the IRS needs to have a free option. That deal is garbage. The 2002 deal, need to get rid of that and actually have a real free option. I'd say through the post office. We should also do banking through the post office. There's a lot of different ways that we could do better for our citizens and get these private predatory for-profit corporations out. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.